Hello everybody. Well, Matt Rosa had a few things to say on Trade Radio this afternoon. Now, as often the case with these list managers, often they say quite a bit without really saying anything. They don't want to give too much away. But there were a few interesting things. The most important, I thought, was the fact that he said it was a priority to get up the draft order. And that is in reference to trading up picks 5 and 6. It's currently picks 4 and 5. It will probably end up being picks 5 and 6 after the Oscar Allen compensation to Gold Coast. But he did say it was a priority to get up the draft order and that they've let Richmond and West Coast know that they want to move. That's important. He has said that. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But before that, we're just going to go over some of the other things that he said. He said nothing has changed and will not change with the Zack Merritt situation. He said we will not trade Zack Merritt. You can take that for what you will. I think they're just taking a hardline stance. I think for Merritt to get traded now, Merritt has to actually formally request a trade himself. Rosa has actually stated when asked that he said there has been no official trade request from Zack Merritt. So for Zack to go, I think he's going to actually have to make a request himself. So this will play out obviously in the next few days, one way or the other. He says that there's been open two-way discussions with Zack, and there have been for the last couple of weeks or so. And he has said that in regards to Zack staying at Essendon, that clubs can move on quickly and get over awkward situations from the past. Footy clubs are good at doing that sort of thing. That's what he said there. On Braden Fiorini, who we will pick up through a trade in the coming days, who has said he wants to go to Essendon. On Fiorini, he says he sees a role for him on the wing. He said this was a position-specific recruit who we wanted specifically for that position. We wanted him for his leadership. We wanted him for his character. We wanted him for his high footy IQ. And we wanted him as a high-end runner. All things that Fiorini is very good at. That is straight from what Matt Rosa said. On our ruck stocks at the moment, when asked about that by Cal Toomey, he said we're comfortable with our ruck stocks. He said Blackiston will most likely play quite a bit in the ruck next year, particularly in the early rounds. That was in reference to Nick Bryan not being available. My take on the ruck, I think we probably might need an extra ruckman in there, but I'm not a list boss. What do I know? But look, Blackiston, he did mention that Blackiston was the best ruckman in the pool of the available ruckman or mature age ruckman in the West Australian Football League. That was why they picked him. And he mentioned that Blackiston did play pretty well in the last quarter against the Gold Coast Suns in the last game of the year. So we can look forward to Blackiston playing in the ruck more next year. He said the Bombers are considering a range of 10 to 15 players in the first portion of the draft. Once again, this is saying a lot without really not saying anything. On Adam Swade and Hussein Al-Achkar, our two NGA picks, he said he's spoken to their families, but he hasn't committed to taking them yet. He says that we need to see where the picks fall before committing to these players. So, I don't think there's any danger of these players being picked up in the top 10 or anything, but that's probably what Matt Rose is referring to there, reading between the lines. He's probably saying, well, if one of these players was bid on in the top 10, that's not going to happen, but say it did, we probably wouldn't match them. But if they're picked up where we expect to pick them up and they're bid on in the range that we expect, we would probably pick them up in that particular instance, which I suspect is what's going to happen. On Jack Steele, he said he's open to exploring all avenues and we're keen to still look for players in terms of character and leadership, but no official talks have gone on with Steele or his management or anything like that. In terms of Zane Dersma, he said that it looks unlikely that Zane Dersma would come to Essendon. North Melbourne are going to hold on to him. And he did just briefly mention about Hobbs, Will Setterfield and Luan Lual. They all will wait till the end of the trade period before a decision is made on their futures. But the most important thing he said was that Essendon's priority is to move up the draft order and that they have spoken to Richmond and West Coast. So what does that mean? So let's just have a look at the draft picks as they are. This is the draft, and this is assuming the Oscar Allen compensation, right? And that hasn't gone through yet for West Coast. So the Oscar Allen compensation, should it go through, it'll be West Coast with pick 1, 2, 17, 23, 24, and 38. Now you can see the points on the right. That's what the points are worth according to the draft value index. Pick 1 is worth 3,000 points. Pick 2 is worth 2,481 points, etc., etc. Essendon would have picks 5, 6, 21, 27, and 30. You can see there, picks 5 and 6 together make a combined 3,454 points. We have 5,162 points in total. Once again, this is assuming the Oscar Allen compensation goes through. Richmond would have picks 3 and 4, which would equate to 4,140 points in total. So I'd just like to mention this because we hear about the points value system index and all that sort of thing. I thought I'd just lay it out in the video so you can actually see it. This is what all the points are worth. You can see there, pick 1, 3,000 points, and it goes down, and it goes right down to pick 54. Pick 54 is the least valuable pick, and that is worth 14 points, and then everything from pick 55 backwards is worth nothing. So if Essendon was to want to trade up with the West Coast Eagles, what the clubs would be looking at making sure the points values equate to each other. So if Essendon gave up picks 5 and 6 for pick 1, Essendon would actually want something back from West Coast in addition to that. It wouldn't be just 5 and 6 for 1. We would want pick maybe 23 or 24 back. So for example, if we get pick 1 from West Coast, 3,000 points, and we give them picks 5 and 6, we're giving them 3,454 points. So that means we need back about 450 points, so it's fair. So if you have a look at the draft value index, there is a pick that's worth exactly 454 points, and that is pick 30. So if West Coast had pick 30, that would be an exactly fair trade. That means we would get pick 1 and 30 from West Coast, and West Coast would get picks 5 and 6 for us. So it'd be picks 5 and 6 for picks 1 and 30. But West Coast don't have pick 30. They have picks 23 and 24. So what I'd be trying to do if I was Essendon was try to get pick 24. Try to get pick 24. That's worth 621 points. We would get 3,600 points-ish from West Coast, picks 1 and 24, and they would get 3,454 points off us, picks 5 and 6, which doesn't quite equal up, but it's very, very, very close. And we would probably give them a future third-round pick for next year so that the total amount of points exchanged is pretty close to the same. And that is kind of how it would work. So in that situation, we would end up with picks 1, 21, 24, 27, and 30. In the end, it comes down to how much we value Willem Dersma. How much do we really want him? And do we consider getting Dersma and whoever pick, say, 24 is, say we get that pick from West Coast, are those two players combined going to be worth more than picks 5 and 6? The draft value index says yes. The draft value index says that pick 1 and pick 24, if we get those picks from West Coast, would actually equate to slightly more than picks 5 and 6. You can take that for what you will. It all depends, of course, on a bit of luck. It depends on how the draftees develop and all that sort of thing. There's a whole lot of things to consider. But that is what might happen given Matt Rosa's comments. Trading up with Richmond would be more difficult, but it all depends on what Richmond's strategy is. Richmond invested very, very heavily in last year's draft, remember. They had something like, 7 or 8 picks in the top 20. If Essendon wanted pick 3 or 4 from Richmond, Essendon could then give up picks 21, 24, and 27 in swap for picks 3 or 4, which is roughly equivalent to the draft value points. It also all depends on whether Richmond want to pick more players. They only have 2 picks. They only have picks 3 and 4. So if they give up pick 4, which is worth 1,962 points, for Essendon's pick 21, 24, and 27, which would equal roughly that 1,900 points, give or take, then Richmond get the equal value number of points, but they get more picks in the draft, and Essendon get pick 4. So there are ways that this can be done. I just thought I'd outline the point system for you guys, because we hear about it when we hear about it on the news. We sort of hear about it when we're scouring through social media. But I thought I'd give you guys a practical example of how it might work and how it could be done fairly. And the way you do it fairly, you've just got to make sure that the point system adds up the same or roughly the same, give or take, for all the teams involved in a trade according to the draft index. So in that hypothetical example, something that could possibly happen, it's all speculation of course, after trading with both Richmond and West Coast, Essendon would end up in that situation that I've lined out with 3 picks. They would have picks 1, pick 4 and pick 30. And Richmond and West Coast would have the same value draft picks they do now, but in a slightly different order, with the draft value index being pretty much the same, give or take, for all 3 sides. Richmond, instead of having 2 top picks, would have 4 picks, but they'll be spread out a bit thinner, given that they may perhaps want more picks in the draft. I don't know exactly what Richmond are going for. They probably wouldn't go for that necessarily. That's up to them, but I'm just outlining an example of how it might happen, given that Matt Rosa did say they have spoken to both clubs and they would be interested in trading up. So there is an example. Essendon could have picks 1, pick 4, pick 30 if they do that. What do you guys think? What would you like to do? What would your ideal scenario be, given that Matt Rosa has said they'd be interested in trading up and interested in looking at what West Coast and Richmond would be interested to do themselves? Thought you guys might be interested in this scenario. It's something that could play out, or something very similar to it anyway. I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.
Watch the Bombers fly. Watch the Bombers fly.